It is 52 Weeks of Design Live, and today I am asking Philip Gorrivan to join. Just told my husband to stop whistling.
Hi. How are you, darling? Can you hear me?
Totally painless.
Totally painless.
Totally painless. Where am I? Are you on a bed?
No, I'm in my little apartment right now.
Cheers.
Fewer distractions down here in the office.
Are you? I mean, I knew you when you were near me, your office.
Yeah.
Or downtown in a hip place
Well,
now?
yeah, I remember I used to be on 59th Street for a long time. Actually, right next to you. Right next to your building. And then I moved down to Park Ave between 24th and 25th about 10 years ago.
Very cool.
So, yeah, it's a nice location. And I share an office with another designer who is just great to work with, Robert Pasal.
Oh, yeah, I love Robert.
Love Robert. And what I found is, how nice it is to work with another design firm because we have such.
I didn't hear that. You said it's so nice to work with another design firm because
We share resources. Also when it's principal to principal, it's always great to share projects, get their feedback, each other's feedback. It's actually it's worked out really well. It's a nice arrangement because, we're constantly sharing. I don't know, it helps make the design, just the office feel fresh.
totally.
Yeah. And also he has his staff, I have my staff. We're all friendly. It's nice. It actually makes us feel like we work in a big firm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you ever have clients to the office?
Yeah, we have a conference room. So I often will I would say infrequently clients come to visit, especially now post-COVID.
Yeah.
So a lot of, most of the meetings are either on site or Zoom.
Right.
And I'm okay with Zoom. I was very anti-Zoom for a long time, but obviously COVID was a proof of concept that it works.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Had I even ever been on a Zoom before COVID? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think I was either.
I remember doing not FaceTime, but like a precursor to FaceTime back in the day when calling China. But I thought that was so crazy. But now it's just, and I know this makes us sound like we're 1,000 years old, but
well, maybe I am, but you're not.
But watching the Jetsons and having them look at people on the phone, all of us were always like, oh, that'll never happen.
Right. Well, the next thing will be getting beamed up somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to that. I want to get beamed.
Oh yeah, totally. Transported.
Flying everywhere all the time.
Or just like from the neck up.
Yeah.
Like on the rest of my body.
The next thing will be we'll have avatars. We're going to have our own avatars to go out and do our,
yeah.
That's the dream.
Falling through, of course, right.
But I say, Alexa, that post, this whole, obviously COVID was really tough, was a tough time, especially for people like you and I who like people. I'm not an introvert. I need to be around people. So it was really particularly difficult for me. But I do think there are some things that I think we figured out can work better to make business more efficient, for sure.
If I can ask the stupid question, what are you happy about that has changed? Putting you on this spot. Sometimes when you're asked to direct.
Yeah, well, there are things that I'm not happy about. but I've learned to accept, and I think a lot of my clients have learned to accept, is that, you know, there used to be always this enormous rush to get things done. And I think people have just accepted that things take longer now than
Yeah.
they used to. And I mean, it's obviously very real too. I mean, I ordered a sofa from Hickory recently for a project, and they said it was going to be 54 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know why they would say a year, but 54. I guess 54 weeks sounds better than a year.
Well, price things at $99.99.
Yeah.
You,
Yeah.
you want to make that leap, but
Right.
um, yeah, it's obviously those things will correct themselves to an extent, but perhaps should never be corrected permanently
Right.
because it's such a crazed pace.
Right. And I've always explained to people, well, I'm not sure about your business, but you know, we always try to please our clients and set expectations and try to work toward like tight schedules the best we can. But you know, it's often very, very hard to do that, even in normal times.
Oh,
So, right. And I think that good design does take a lot of thought and time, and one shouldn't rush through things.
um, of course,
Yeah.
and you, um, but not like that's a philosophy. Not like it always has to take X. You know, sometimes the ideas can just come to you, and sometimes they'll take a minute, but you can't know which one it's going to be.
Right.
I had a dream last night about a canopy bed, and I do think I solved a problem. But sometimes, you know, when you're worried about something and you dream about it and
Yeah.
you're fix it, and
I,
sometimes you wake up
so
and it's really fixed, but sometimes you wake up and you realize that's like impossible. A banana will not hang the curtains. You know,
but it's interesting that you say that, because I, you know, there are also, I was reading where there are, you know, people like a lot of scientists, philosophers, um, I mean, a lot of people wake up, like I often have these moments when I'm sleeping and a half dream, like in a dream state, and I wake up and I have to write it down. Like, oh my God. And I guess, you know, I was reading an article recently where it's not unusual. A lot of people do that, a lot of creative people. And some people actually wake themselves up. There was maybe it was even Einstein, who used to wake himself up, an alarm, right when he went into REM sleep. So he would wake up and he would have all these ideas come to him. So
um,
I can think I do a lot of my best creating when I'm sleeping. It's just hard to bill for that.
it's nonsense. Sometimes
How, how,
you're
how,
like, that is nonsense.
how do you bill hourly for that?
Yeah, exactly. But sometimes it work. I really do think, yeah, I think I puzzled something through. Um, yeah, this goes back to what I constantly talk about during these interviews is the need for hobbies. What are your hobbies?
Well,
And I know you travel. That doesn't count.
well, no. So, well, yeah, the traveling is a big part, because I do feel that, you know, we have to experience the world and see the world to get inspiration. It's a great sort of travel is the greatest source of inspiration.
Stimulus.
I feel, yes, and it's endless. Um, but you know, so I mean, I collect a lot of different types of things. You know, when I was a teenager, I started collecting drawings, old master drawings, and I always wanted,
What?
you know, I got into drawings when I was pretty young, and I found that, I mean, one of the nice things about drawings is that you get to see, like, first of all, they're cheap. They used to be very cheap back in the day, and back in 1883. That's just kidding. Back in the day, they were very cheap, but also, you know, you could get, you know, obviously you could get something that was done, something drawn by a great artist, you know, again, for a fraction of the price, but also see the whole artistic process happening. So, and I studied art and art history mainly. And so I always thought I wanted to become an art dealer or an artist or an art dealer when I moved to New York. But then I don't know, I also developed this obsession for things like furnishings and all the
Well, art is still a thing. I
oh,
mean,
thing.
I'm not,
Absolutely. And it's a big part of what I do. But I also feel like, what I really love is maybe, I mean, I love art. I love like a singular piece of art in a room, but what I love even more is the composition of art balanced out with furnishings and
right,
sofa.
the context.
This whole complete, like a complete room. So, but I collect a lot of things. I collect amberware. I mean, I'm sorry, I collect amethyst glass, mostly Wiener Werkstatt. You,
Amethyst glass.
you haven't seen my amethyst glass collection. Um,
Uh,
I collect glassware. I have lots of glassware. I probably have more dinner parties.
but if you die of an early death, all of your amethyst glass comes to me.
Okay. Well, there's a list, but yes, I will make sure you have some pieces. Yes. So amethyst glass. I also, for a long time ago, this is when I was a teenager, I had an aunt who had this house near my family's house up on a lake in Maine, and she called it the Owl's Nest, and everything in it was an owl. And ever since I was about 12, I've had an obsession with owls. I know owls are like super on trend now, but I've been obsessed with them for like 40 years. And so like I'd love to have you come to my place in Connecticut, but there's a lot of owls. There's a lot of owl paraphernalia, whether it's paintings, figurines, stuffed owls, carved owls. I've got some spillover in here. I don't know if you see. There's a little spillover.
Sounds little
Some spillover.
gardens, you and your owls.
The owl thing. But it's interesting how the owl thing became so popular. But I've loved owls my whole life. I also do a bit of beekeeping. I've got
Really?
3 beehives right now in Connecticut,
That's very good.
and which is amazing. And they yield, each of the beehives can yield up to like 50 pounds of honey a season. So I've started doing that, and I've started doing a lot of the beekeeping on my own. I don't work. I'm working less with the beekeeper now. I figured out how to do it. Put the suit on, and
Do you have any allergies, or did you used to that your honey is fixed?
uh, yes. Oh my gosh, I used to have the worst allergy to pollen, like every kind of pollen.
Yeah.
And I do believe 100% that using local honey does change that.
I believe it. It makes
Yeah,
sense.
it makes total sense. I mean, you're basically
Not
ingesting local honey, local pollen, the thing that you're allergic to. So your body develops an immunity to it. But I love my bees. And also I have a passion for gardening, which is a big part of what I do on the weekends.
I feel
So
like
it,
I
gardening is a very difficult, unlike interior design, gardening, I know I find gardening to be like an extra special challenge because, you're dealing with rooms without walls. There are no walls. There are no furniture plans. You're just dealing with like tree.
are elevations and there are
Yeah.
plans. I mean, do you care a lot about your plan view, or are you more blousy in your gardening?
It's more, my gardens are more, I'd say they're more kind of wild, um, more wild, and they're more of, I'm not one of those people who does like a clump of this and a clump of that. They all sort of mix in together. And I try to create a garden where things at least bloom in different times seasonally, but it's very hard to do that. And in Connecticut, we're a certain zone. So there are only certain things that grow in Connecticut. You can ask Bunny Williams. She's the best resource. But like whatever will grow in Bunny's garden will grow up there, basically. But I've tried so many things that have failed over the years.
That's like, what would Jesus do? What would grow in Bunny's garden?
Yeah.
So what was your path into this? Not the gardening, but into it all. Besides the fact that you started collecting young, did you study art history? Did you?
I did, but before that, and it's interesting because when I interview people, I'm always drawn, even if even if they don't have experience in interior design or they went to an interior design school. I often will ask people like sort of what they did when they were younger, like what excited them when they were teenagers, when they were children, because I can remember ever since I was the age of, I mean, ever since I can remember, I just loved things, art, decoration. And I used to have these great aunts who were also into collecting. And, it's interesting. I was the oldest child, so I spent a lot of time with adults growing up. So I would spend time, with my great aunts, my grandfather, my father. My father was into collecting coins and antiques. My mother was more into like modern things. She didn't really have interest in antiques. So, my house growing up, while, it was modest, it was a real mix.
Mm-hmm.
Like antique things that were passed down from generations and new furnishings. So I kind of grew up in this, like the original eclectic
Right.
suburban
The modern mix.
the mix, yeah. But I guess it was really like just my spending time with the older generation growing up, and I also, I mean, my parents. I remember my parents asking me like, "What do you want for Christmas?" When I was 11, I was like, "I want a subscription to Architectural Digest."
You're like, I'm gonna, yeah.
So that was me. That's what I used to do. I used to open up design magazines, and I was blown away by this world that existed. And I mean, it really was.
And where were you growing up?
I was in Portland, Maine, and I mean, I would look at these apartments in New York, some of the apartments that your father did, many of them, which were so inspiring. But I would look at them and be like, "Holy shit, this is amazing! Like I've never seen anything like it."
I still feel that way. Like, I
Yeah.
can't believe, especially of that generation, that people live like that. And I love it so much. I admire it so much.
And the design, and it was different. I mean, designers were different, and designers were looked at differently, and it was a very different business then. But
Yeah.
people had, I don't know, I literally, I just went, I have about 11 years of Architectural Digest magazines in my barn in Connecticut right now, that I've started going through. But it's pretty amazing, like some of these designers. So I do appreciate when I meet people who know about the designers of the past, because they have so shaped our business. And it's not just like your father is David Hicks, it's
Right. No, I mean,
Jake
nobody
Hector, all these designers, Denny Foucault,
in a vacuum.
Parrish. Sorry?
Nobody should be in a vacuum.
No, but I think a lot of people don't really know the history of design so much. And so much happened in interior design in the 20th century that I think
Well,
has shaped what we do.
I mean, the career exists only really in the 20th century.
Yeah,
Uh,
it,
decorating as we know it did not beforehand. It was the brothers Adam doing.
right. Or you had Candace Wheeler, who was up, she worked for Tiffany, and she did some decor, some interior design, but it really wasn't considered, it wasn't a trade
Yeah.
at all. It was just people styling their homes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Or creating integral millwork and molding, and,
right,
the structure.
right.
Do you, I mean, I am not sad that we don't live in that world. I enjoy the scope and the ambition of those decades,
Yeah.
but I am very happy to be wearing elasticized pants. Like the idea,
And a black t-shirt.
and I'm
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
um, I don't have the energy to do both.
yeah.
You know, I want my interiors to look a certain way, whether it's for me or for a client, as I know you do. But I don't also have the bandwidth to like dress myself. Like I just I poop out.
It's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
But that's true. Like people used to, I mean, my goodness. I remember going to the D&D building even back in, like the 90s, and people, it was a whole different, it was a very different vibe for
very,
a I mean, I guess I used to wear suits.
yeah. I used to wear skirts and heels.
Yeah.
It's hard to and stockings.
Hot.
Everybody had to wear stockings.
Yeah.
Not everybody. The women had
Yeah.
to wear stockings at my father's office.
Yeah.
Do you know what that did to, I mean, you don't. Stockings are not inexpensive. And if you are a young person starting out in a business,
Yeah.
and on top of having to mind your expenses, then you've got to buy stockings and maintain them, not get a ladder, run in your stockings. I remember feeling like that was a horrible, horribly.
Yeah. Well, no, it's good. Well, also, like, right, our clients are more casual now.
Yeah. Tell me about in your, you've had a long career and you're right in the middle of it. No end in sight. What are some of your touchstone projects that you look back on and that you feel have shaped you?
Well, some of my favorite projects,
The same man you were in 98 or 2000.
projects, well, have been apartments. I mean, that's where I kind of started. My first project, my first project ever was at 799 Park. And I've worked on many buildings on Park. But I like I like the whole, I like decorating in New York City because it's a very unique, New York City is a very, as you know, a very unique place. You walk by these buildings, some of them are nondescript, and you never know what's going on the inside. And I just love it when you can walk into, a doorman building or even an elevator, just walk up in like a freight elevator and you open the door and it's like amazing what is unfolded. This is something very wonderful about doing work in New York City. When my first project was at 799 Park, and I actually, interestingly, it was for a couple who hadn't redecorated the apartment in 30 years, and their decorator was Billy Baldwin.
Dude, you had to redo Billy Baldwin?
I had a Billy Baldwin, but it was very much, I mean, everything was in disrepair. There were a lot of things that were out of date, but the Billy Baldwin rugs, in fact, it's the same rug that he had in his studio in New York. That it's like it's like a yellow, white, and brown rug with stripes. I think Stark still sells it, but they had the original rugs, and there was like original Billy Baldwin furnishings. And it's interesting. I knew about Billy Baldwin because I was reading Architectural Digest for years. So I had a great appreciation for his work. And it was a fun process. Like I helped them, I respected what he did and his design, and I just helped update it a bit. But that was my first project. It was really special. And I never got it photographed, unfortunately. I wish I did.
How long were you working in the business before you opened up on your own?
So I worked, for about 10 years.
Oh, okay.
My first job was at Hearst Magazines, and I was there for about 4 years. And that was right out of college. I got, Hearst Magazines used to have this training program, and over the course of a year, you'd go around to all the different magazines. And also, you spend time in distribution, spend time in, sort of research and development places like Good Housekeeping Institute. And so I worked at Good Housekeeping, and then I worked at Hearst. And, although when I moved to New York, my goal and my first dream was to work for an art gallery, like a gallerist, like Leo Castelli,
Sure.
or, one of the big art dealers at the time. But this just
So
came up.
who were your favorite artists at that time?
Oh, well, like Basquiat, Andy Warhol.
So you were already there.
I mean, and Jasper Johns and Rothko, and they were all being represented by Castelli. He was the biggest dealer in town, and then I think like Jeffrey Deitch was the other one. Um, but I didn't. Those jobs were super hard to get. Anyway, I had an opportunity to work for Hearst magazines. It was fantastic. I worked before they had the Hearst building over at 959 8th Avenue, and I was there. And then from there, I was always sort of moonlighting in the design world, but I mean that was my career. I was building a career in publishing. Then I went into digital,
You were circling it.
early digital, smart like Wall Street Journal, Dow Jones. So it was like sort of online content, but it was very new. It's like when we had those
You
modems.
were this in
There was
the
nothing streaming. It was all very new, first wave internet. So, but it was all publishing and sales, and then I sort of morphed into more financial. Anyway, long story short, and like when you're in sales, you do take on, like salespeople are like, they have, you have lots of jobs when you're in sales. And I just wasn't feeling very fulfilled at all in the corporate world. And my last job, remember, I was working at a bank and in, I guess it's like sort of the private equity area. And I was just so bored. I was like, this is not what I want to do with my life. And at the time, I was already married, and Lisa and I had bought a little apartment. Well, we had a little apartment near you, 56th Street, between First and Sutton Place. That
school.
we had fun decorating, and then we bought a house in Connecticut. And while this is all parallel, and then we would have friends over, and they loved it, and so it just started happening in a very organic way. People were asking me if I could help them. And I guess then the light bulb went off, and I was like, wait, I could have a business here because I'm doing this right now. I mean, I already had D&D accounts. My first account, it's funny, Brigitte
Yeah,
from Lee Joffa.
Brigida.
Here, I give her a big hug because the first account I ever opened,
She was at BNF.
well, she was at Clarence House originally.
No.
And she is the first person, and this is back in like 1992,
Yeah.
I had my first design account, trade account open. She let me, and I didn't know a design firm. Like I said, I was starting it. Anyway, Brigitte gave me a break, and remember Clarence House was like,
Right.
walk in the staircase. And,
Playing nonstop.
but anyway, so I was doing a lot of work for people on the side and doing my own things. And then 9/11 happened. I was down on Wall Street, and both Lisa and I had a real tough time because well, she was pregnant with our son, and I was working down there, and she was working next to the World Trade Center. And that morning, strangely enough, she would have morning sickness. She was late for the office, and I got diverted to a meeting in Midtown. And I actually had my colleague who was staying at the World Trade Center come up and meet me. And we're in the conference room, and this is when it all unfolded. But both Lisa and I were supposed to have a meeting at about noon that day at the restaurant in the Windows of the. We had to meet that day because there was a conference. And so that had a significant impact on my life, as you can imagine. We were down there, and the fact that, we both were very, very lucky that day. It was like our lucky day. And I decided after that, because downtown, everything was shut down, and I just decided at that point that I had nothing to lose, and it was time to just follow my dreams. And, it was a softish landing because I had design clients, but I realized I needed to I needed to work for a design firm. So I went to work for Eric Kohler for 2 years, which was a great experience because he let me also work on my own projects at the same time. And then my big break was being asked to do a room in the House and Garden show house out in the Hamptons. You may have been in that house.
What year was it?
Okay, 90s,
3?
90s, late 90s.
No, my
No, no, it had to be 2000 and
Eric Kohler did the library with the crossword puzzle ceiling.
that was,
I did the living room.
so I did it the year before. What year was that?
I think that was 2003. So you were 2002.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, so right after 9/11. Yeah.
It's definitely, there are parallels to be drawn with that COVID and people reevaluating their life goals of the enormous disruption in our life, in the world.
Well, and also one of the things I realized, I was very fearful because I mean, I was making good money and I was on this path, career path in the corporate world, but I do believe that, I mean, obviously I had extreme, unusual circumstances that helped make this decision, but I do think it's really important to have more than one career in your life.
Uh-oh. Like, oh no.
Not for everybody, but I think it's important. But like what I do now, I mean, it's so funny. Like now, it's 21 years later, and I've never looked back. I've never really looked back, and it's been the fastest 21 years. I can't believe it. Hundreds of projects later, and I guess I never would have guessed when I started my business that I would even be in business this long. Who knew? There are a lot of ups and downs.
It is amazing to me because our careers are made up of one job stacked upon the next.
Yeah.
It is funny how, if you can get obviously caught up in forward motion, but there are those moments where you stop and you look behind you and you're like, oh my gosh, look at all that.
I started a list the other day of all the apartments I've done. It's a long list, and unfortunately, not everything. So many have not been photographed over the years. I mean, that's the one thing I think if I could do it again would be to make sure everything gets photographed and chronicled.
Do you have it in your contract?
Well, I do. I mean, now, I mean, it used to be I couldn't afford it.
Of course. No. Of course.
I couldn't afford the fees that, to have if a magazine wanted to take it, that was one thing. But of
course.
My budgets were very different then than they are now. So
No.
now,
It's a wonderful photographer is deservedly charges money.
you can pay for.
And it's absolutely worth it, but it's not always feasible. But do you? I know some people. I do not have it in my contract that I must be able to photograph it.
I do. It says I reserve the right.
I can't hear you.
I said sometimes it doesn't always work that way, but I think a clause in my contract that says I have an opportunity to photograph it.
Yeah, because it's not to say you'll publish it. It's just so that.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are you excited about right now?
So a lot this past year, like after we got out of COVID, a lot has happened. That's new. I have a little office in Houston, Texas right now.
How did that?
And I've got 2 people there, and we're working with a pretty well-known developer, basically building houses, designing houses down there. So Houston's exciting. It's also exciting. It's exciting to experience new markets in this country. Not just New York and the Hamptons. So that's exciting. I also have started doing a lot more work down in Palm Beach, in West Palm Beach.
Mm.
So we're going down next week for an installation. And we've got a few other projects we're currently working on as well. So I'm excited that we're in different places right now. I've got different
Yeah.
projects in different places, whether it's like a Cotswolds country house in Connecticut, or it's a 1970s Gio Ponte inspired house in Palm Beach, or it's a French chateau in Houston. They're all different. I like having this.
Yeah,
It's a
yeah. I,
broad work.
I, but how did the Houston piece come about? That's fascinating.
So
Or did-
I met somebody. I met his name is Mateo, and he's basically my business. Practically my business partner. He's from Houston. He actually had this work and was able to bring it over. And I met him down in Palm Beach a year and a half ago. He did a room for Kips Bay, and we hit it off really well. And so it was just a number of things, but it was like a perfect storm. It all worked out. So I feel, like, again, also I feel like, it's an exciting time because I have really good people.
that makes all the difference.
Makes all the difference. And as you know, I
They're
mean, this is like a calling. I mean, you spend so much of your life. Look, we dream about what we do. So it's so important to have people that you really enjoy working with in your life.
What's your favorite
Love,
part?
love my team.
What's your favorite part of the design process?
So I at least say, well,
Oh,
um,
I'll
there's
take that.
definitely like least favorite parts, but I mean, I say the most exciting part of the business, when you get down to, it's the whole design development process to me is the most exciting. Um, but now, however the process looks, but we always have this design development process, and it's that process when you're getting to know your clients and you're getting to know what their needs are and what their likes and dislikes are, and understanding the house and the geography and where it is and how they want to use it. And it's that sort of process of developing space, like a living space for them. I like that. That's the most fun part. Um, Now, like you develop, of course, as we put together schemes and designs, and obviously, not everything we do clients buy off on,
Yep.
but process, it's like a whole vetting process. But to me, that's the most exciting part is that whole creative part of putting things together.
Yeah,
What about you?
I agree.
Yeah.
And that just endless possibility and the excitement, or the when you're sitting with the client, and I'm thinking of one in particular who all of a sudden we threw a purple leather into the scheme,
Yeah.
and I both, like, our eyes lit up, and when you just feel a little bit of alchemy in the room, and it's very exciting. Obviously, installation is fun, but it's also, you know a particular kind of pain. Like, it's maybe when it's finished, it's fabulous, but the going through it and finding it.
Tough.
Um,
But also, I love that. I do. I mean, one of my favorite moments in design is when, like you're just saying, like you show something to a client and eyes just light up and they're like, "Oh my God, I love it."
I don't know. The only two things, well, I don't want to say that because I'm gonna just stop what I was gonna say. So forget it. Um, all right, hold on a second. Okay, I've got time. What are you going to do in the next 10 years? Do you have a business plan? I'm always curious about people who have them, because I have no idea what that even means.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you.
Good.
I
I'm a five.
have a
I'm
bit,
like,
well, what I've decided I decided a long time ago is that, this is not the kind of job First of all, I don't ever plan on retiring.
Yeah.
What do you do when you retire?
You die.
Yeah, I mean, I'm saying like I'm not going to go play golf. I travel now. I don't see myself ever retiring. In fact, I think that, as you get older and the more experience you get, the better you get. So it is, what we do is sort of like a calling in a way. It's not as much a career,
Yeah.
right? Um, so as far as my plan goes, I say I have like a loose plan right now. The plan is to continually develop different markets in the U.S. Maybe not be so New York centric all the time. I was in London for a while. That was interesting until Brexit happened. But that was an interesting moment. But so it's continuing to explore new markets. I do want to continue to build my wallpaper company and also licensing. The licensing is something that kind of fallen on the wayside.
I miss that fabric of yours. It is still
Yeah.
shining around. I love that fabric. And it came in a beautiful purple colorway that I'm really sad I missed.
Well, like in Durley is no more, but I had those two collections with them, and I have a collection with Baker right now. But it's something that I want to start developing. It's really hard. You need to find the right people.
Of course.
That I've got someone managing the wallpaper, and we're going to be adding, a few patterns a year. But that's something. Obviously, like I know you do. You have that's a big part of your business, and it's wonderful. The design, it's like you do the work, and the royalties come later, and that's kind of nice. And it's kind of nice to have that backup,
Yeah.
design work. So,
But it's not as static as that, as you know, because you just said Durley is no more.
yeah,
There's a whole ebb and flow to it, or when you think of just the fact that you're focusing on wallpapers, look at 2009,
yeah,
when the people making wallpapers just kind of went away for a minute,
yeah,
and nobody wanted pattern, and it felt like, oh my God, am I ever going to be able to find wallpaper again?
right.
Of course, it's roared back. So I used to think about licensing very optimistically, thinking, okay, well, you'll do it and it'll just be like this edifice that you build and it will exist forever. But of course, it's not like that. It's almost a living, breathing thing where there are natural lives to each piece.
Right.
They succeed, they don't, they have their moment, then they go by the wayside. It's more than just having a good idea. It's also being a partner, and then it's supporting the partners who invite you to work with them. I mean, I'm saying this to anybody listening. It's interesting because we all think of it as sort of like a thing, licensing, but it is much more. It's much more of a relationship and an organic thing. There's a total collapse of my vocabulary.
Well,
It's
like else you get out of it what you put into it, right?
yeah, there are times when I have done something and it has failed, and I just and I'm like, well, that's on me then. I should,
Yeah,
better then.
right.
If it didn't catch on, I'll just have to do better next time.
Yeah, well, that's a good attitude because sometimes people don't defeat like that, handle
Well,
defeat.
you control the economy, for example. I mean, that's not worth wasting one's time worrying about when you can't control it. I mean, I hope you got, by the way, a Mega Millions ticket. I did. If you never see me again, you know what happened.
Is it? When is it?
It's $1 billion.
Okay, I'm designing an apartment for a family.
Yeah.
They won Powerball.
Good. Good.
They
Yeah.
won Powerball. I know. It's like, oh my God.
Are they lovely?
They're lovely, lovely,
That-
lovely. No, I go into all these bodegas and I'm like waiting in line at people buying tickets. I'm like, why am I doing this?
just knowing that there's one person out there who won it
Yeah.
and fun and having you design an apartment for them thrills me. Good for
Well,
them.
they're lovely, and what we're doing, it's very thoughtful and special, and they've been very excited about the process. But I had never met anybody who won.
No, nor have I.
Yeah,
Nor have I.
yeah.
Um, though I very much hope to be
Wait, did
one.
you buy a ticket?
Of course, I bought a ticket.
Where'd you go?
Anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we live in New York.
I feel like maybe I should like go different places.
Yeah, but that's really, and that's personally, that's if it's quick pick.
Yeah.
We're playing certain numbers, doesn't matter. So you should do both. Um, it, yeah, interesting. Um, so besides winning the Powerball, you're traveling, I mean, or Mega Million, you're traveling, you're traveling, you're opening up markets, you're open to licensing, you're constantly collecting. What do your kids like?
Well, interesting. My kids have they have an appreciation for design, but they're not in the design fields. They're not building careers in the design field.
But do they like modern? Are they
Uh, they,
on your wavelength, or have they veered?
I think that they would both tell you that their dad is a little too maximalist for them.
I think my kids would say the same thing, though not about their dad.
What did Charlie say? Then I said, a few too many layers, Dad. Yeah. So, but no, they appreciate it. And, I think, like, my kids they grew up in a nice environment, nice homes. And I mean, I think it is wonderful that, they do have an appreciation for things, nice things. And my daughter just moved she just graduated from college, Middlebury, and she's now living, and just got a new apartment. And, she's very excited about the whole process of like putting her apartment together, the design process. So I think that's really exciting, and I'm glad that I was able to impart that on the kids.
There is no end to the excitement of realizing how a pretty atmosphere, and define pretty however you like, a satisfying atmosphere can really change how you feel.
When
Not necessarily obviously expensive or whatever, but you get it right, it can just, I had friends, I always wanted friends to come over to my house because obviously I left
Yeah.
my parents' apartment. But there were certain people that I just loved going to their house because it just, magic.
You evoked a certain feeling, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
it is magic,
Moment. Yeah.
and it seeps through you. So, you talk about the thing, but it's both the thing and not at all the thing.
Very, very important. And even a comfortable couch will change your life.
Yeah, I mean, duh.
Duh.
Like,
I talk about that all the time. It's like, just getting a comfortable sofa is going to completely change your life.
yeah, it's like, what if you had a bad mattress? I mean,
Like good bed. Okay. Like, do not cheap out on beds. No one should cheap out on a bed.
I think people know that. I know
Yeah.
that, but we have to remind them about sofas. And I think some people, so obviously we all have people who want only 100% down. They don't care how much you have to fluff it up. You just fluff it up.
Fluff it.
You fluff the cushions, like
Sit, fluff.
Yeah, that's what it's about. That's full down sofa is. But then there other people who that will hurt their back. So it's just finding whatever's good for that person, committing to making them get the thing that makes them feel good.
Absolutely. No, I agree. And so I mean that's a big part of our jobs too.
Yeah, it doesn't sound glamorous, but it is.
It's become glamorous, but it's making people's lives more comfortable.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
I do have some clients who they're like real design clients, and they want They're like, give me something fabulous. But they're fewer and fewer, I find. Um,
Well, I mean, it's a special thing. It's chemistry. It's seeing eye to eye. It's expense. It's a lot. It's a lot of stuff. Um, but for nice people, what wouldn't you do?
well, we often, so for nice people, we, well, there's so much good product out there now. It's very, you know, design today has become a lot easier, and in the sense that you can design in a high-low kind of way for your clients, and the things that you pick that are not so expensive still look good. Remember, there was a time when everything was expensive. Like you couldn't, basically, you know, there were no visual comforts. There were no, sort of less expensive lines.
But Bungalow
They,
Five
they also remember,
is made.
sorry,
Bungalow Five.
Bungalow 5.
When Luke, Luca Renzi, who, and now it's not called Bungalow Five, but he came out of my father's office at the same time as Markham and I, and he went to David Easton and he went to David Kleinberg, and then he just saw the need in that market. And I it's like what you're doing in Houston. You're doing this something entrepreneurial that's super helpful to make things less impossible for people to live well.
I think that's exciting. I mean, you know, and this is the other thing, because our industry is changing. What we do, our roles are changing as designers. As I was mentioning, in the past, like for instance, designers like your father, people would go to interior designers because they would hold like the keys to heaven, right? You would have to hire an interior designer if you wanted to unopen this world.
Well, there's still a lot of access that you
There is
really.
now, it's become much more egalitarian. Everybody can order anything. You can go on First Dibs. You can go on all these different online stores, Cherish, and you don't have to be a designer to do it. So, like, I see my job also kind of evolving, and maybe this is part of the long-term plan, but as more of a consultant, because you can buy all the things you want on Wayfair and make tons of mistakes,
Okay,
and
you're
uh,
finding.
but you like, I still think like there's no substitute for having experience in design.
I would further say that you can buy the whatever on whatever marketplace, but it's the relationships that unlock when somebody comes to us and they need curtains, or they need a really special something, or they need an artisan to build them something. We not only give them access because we are quote unquote professionals, it is it's those relationships that we have built over years and years and years. And yeah, somebody just said you were so right about consulting. And even so, that even if it were simply consulting, you still need you, Philip Gorrivan, to unlock that great relationship with those people who
Yes,
are going to, it's not just a collection of crap that you've just put in. It's that all of those trades that really you need.
right.
You're not going to get unless they hire you or me.
So yeah, so when people say, "Oh, interior design is a dying business," I don't think it is
That
at, at all. Even with all the competition we have out there, I mean, I think if you're good and you know your business, and you have a lot of experience, people are going to come to you. You might
yeah.
work differently, you may work
I'm,
differently, but they'll still there's a need for people who are experts.
yeah,
And
people are very busy. They don't have time.
right,
That's always been a nice part of the secret sauce of our jobs. It's, our best clients have great taste. They're not coming to us because they've got bad taste. They've got great taste, but they are also busy doing things, and
yeah,
they do this for a living. They need a professional.
they do.
I'm happy that they're busy. you know?
I, I love, I love a busy client.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some like to get very involved in the process, step by step, and that's fine too. That can be fun.
It's all situations
Yeah.
or
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like what we do, we really, every project is different. Every relationship is different. There's no one set way of doing things at all.
yeah.
One thing I
And
think
that's what keeps it
very flexible in what we do. Very flexible and open-minded about things.
I'm sorry that he is like a furry alarm clock. That
Yeah.
it's 2 o'clock. Oh, somebody's asking. This is a very good question.
Okay.
Do you give back to help someone with design? I love to help someone with a refresh. Um, well, give back. I mean, we of course, refresh sounds like they're calling us and asking us to refresh, which of course.
Right.
But I'm sure you are supportive of our industry. Just the fact that you participate in Kips and I mean, we all hope to be supportive of our industry mates,
Well,
right?
we're the leaders in our industry. Absolutely. We have to support it.
Um, yeah,
Um, we have to, I mean, absolutely. It's really important for me to, foster, develop, help people develop their careers. I've had a lot of people who've worked for me over the years who have their own firms now. So, no, like, well, so yeah, giving back is important. I think, also I'm always happy to, meet with people and, um, maybe, visit somebody's home and, as long as you feed me wine and cheese, I'll give you my feedback.
it's all about the cheese.
All about the cheese.
Good bread.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for doing this today. Uh, I love hearing what everyone's up to, and
Yeah.
I feel so endlessly inspired when I get off these calls. I'm like, yeah, let's go build houses in Houston.
That
Like,
actually energized me. Thank you. This was great.
thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for the fabric I still have. I can't wait.
Have lunch or something soon?
Yes, please.
Okay,
Actually, lunch is completely useless to me. Let's have a drink or dinner.
that's better. Actually, I totally agree.
Okay. All right. Kisses. Thank you, and I hope I see you soon.
I likewise. Bye. Thank you.